Hello, everyone. It is an absolute pleasure to be here virtually with you all today. Thank you for inviting me to share the stage with so many interesting speakers, and I'm personally excited to hear what others have to say and share too. To very briefly introduce the business I founded and run, Wazoku and Innocentive are pioneers in open innovation, crowdsourcing, and innovation at scale. Wazoku provides the tools and processes to help you think and act differently, to accelerate your time from idea to invoice, to embrace diversity on a global scale, to accelerate your research and innovation efforts, and to do so with unparalleled success, having solved almost 80% of the innovation challenges we have run over a 20-year period. Through our market-leading software and services, we help our clients to empower everyone, your employees, your partners, your customers, to co-create, collaborate, and innovate with and for you, and offer you an on-demand access to over 500,000 expert innovators, a global pool of startups, and we open up the world's best universities and research centers to you. In fact, we offer you the power of the global collective intelligence to help you innovate better, faster and cheaper, and drive true value and impact. I'm going to talk to you today about the drivers for a change of approach and thinking in research and innovation, share examples of how firms are embracing more open approaches to research and innovation, and hopefully spark some ideas for you and your teams going forward as you continue to change the world one idea at a time. So let's break the shackles of subscale innovation and unleash our true innovation potential as individuals, as organizations, as communities, and shift to a focus of innovation at scale. Please just give me a moment while I share my screen. Okay. A fundamental tenet of the innovation at scale philosophy is the belief in the innate creativity and problem-solving capacity of everybody. I've too often encountered business leaders who dare to utter the phrase, "We just don't have that creative people in my company." Maybe a spot of self-reflection might reveal we just don't have creative, innovative leaders in too many of our companies. Either way, through over 2 decades of working across organizations of all shapes, sizes, sectors, geographies, I can confirm that everybody has the potential to be an incredible problem solver. We need to enable and unleash that capacity. If you don't believe me, those same people you might be thinking of right now solve all kinds of problems outside the office environment, as parents, as family members, community members, and more. It is the organizational guardrails that are limiting them and limiting your ability to unleash innovation at scale. The opportunity cost is massive. So let's all first of all get on the same page, because there's a lot of mixed language in the topic we're talking about. And it's important you understand my perspective, as this informs everything that comes next. So what do we mean by innovation? Quite simply, I think that innovation is a process through which new products and services are developed, or existing products are enhanced to create new forms of value. That's what I mean by innovation. Well, to put it another way, we think about innovation as more than novel ideas, more than the latest technology or the creation of new products and services. And instead, we take a more experimental and agile approach to innovation that includes both relentless improvements and breakthrough innovation, and everything in between that creates new value. In our view, innovation covers this entire spectrum. If organizations are to transition away from ad hoc innovating to sustainable innovation at scale, then the first step is to establish and enable processes which create value regularly, sustainably, and scalably. Whatever the short-term drivers for innovation are, and there are many of them, ever-changing competitive landscapes, business model diversification, shifting consumer demands, etc., etc. Imagining an ever-increasing space for value creation is absolutely critical if organizations are to succeed in taking innovation out of an R&D lab and into the everyday ways of working and truly drive innovation at scale. So what do we mean by scale? Well, it's interesting to see where people's thoughts go when you ask them what they think we mean by scale. What we don't mean is one big idea, nor do we mean lots and lots of unstructured ideas. This is not a talk about innovation pipeline management. We're thinking about scale in the truest and purest sense of the word. And it's important for the remainder of this session that we take some time to reflect on this, as without doing so, we risk missing the significance of the scale point. So allow me to posit a few questions for you. How can you enable and empower innovation in every single team in your organization, in every department, every single day, to do research, experimentation, products and service development, incremental transformation, all the way through to Horizon 3 innovation in a way that is joined up, optimized, sustainable, scalable, structured, and most importantly, of course, successful? How can we ensure that we are working on more problems, more successfully, more often, wasting less money, less time, less effort, but without needing to increase the investment or the team? After all, the threats that we're facing, the risks, the disruption are all real, they're all growing, and let's face it, they aren't going away. Our innovation efforts today are constrained and bounded by capacity, mindset, risk appetite, and more. Innovation at scale embraces a philosophy of unbounded innovation capacity. And this may sound idealistic and like hyperbole, but there is evidence for it. Some are achieving it, and everyone else, well, you know who you are. If we want to survive and thrive as future-fit organizations, we cannot continue to operate as we have. No matter how brilliant our teams, how much incredible talent, process, money we have to throw at the problems we face, how incredible our marketeers might be, the connections between buyers and sellers, speakers and listeners, creators and consumers have fundamentally changed and are now bypassing the traditional gatekeepers. What does this mean for us and our ways of working? Well, think how long it can take you to get a new product or service partner through procurement, to navigate the maze of compliance, to broker partnerships with startups, to get around endless questions around intellectual property, etc. Are your current ways of working truly future fit for the highly dynamic and rapidly evolving research and innovation landscape of today? I'm going to guess no. The momentum coming from global trends, including circular economy and platformization, a trend in which dominant players have become sub-economies with market caps greater than the GDP of countries, are forcing us all to think differently about our products, our services, the impact these have, our purpose, our profit, our processes, really our entire operating models. Our words must be backed up by concrete and evidenceable action aligned to the zeitgeist. And this demands that our teams in this new economy and ways of working must always be thinking about how we manage an alignment between this complex multi-channel ecosystem. We've just got to be better joined up. The network of networks creates an opportunity, but also huge complexity and risk. And so exploitative incrementalism, explorative innovation, sustainability, talent in all its guises, brand and culture must become interwoven aspects of our business lives like never before. In this age of platformization, with the internet being the ultimate platform, the long tail is at play. I'm sure that this is something that you're familiar with. The 80-20 rule is a similar concept. But in the age of platforms and the age of hyperconnectivity, the opportunity contained within the long tail is big, and it is getting bigger. In 2019, Wazoku acquired Incentive, adding another incredible pioneering proposition to our global client proposition, further augmenting our innovation at scale offering. The Incentive two-sided open innovation marketplace of problems and solvers has proven incredibly effective at driving high impact, cost-efficient research and innovation for our global business partners, NGOs, and many, many more companies over 2 decades. As the world of work evolves and the way that work is done evolves, on-demand platforms such as Incentive are empowering companies to do research and innovation at speed, scale, and effectiveness in ways that was never previously thought possible. You hire incredible talent in your companies, but there's a lot more talent out there in that long tail that you do not hire. And in the platform economy, it is easy to access, cost-effective, and hyper-scalable. You may have huge economies of scale due to your size and volume, but through the platform economy and the power of the long tail, new forms of competition, new business models, and new approaches to research, development, innovation mean that much smaller companies can access global talent for a fraction of the cost, on demand, and only pay for the results. Imagine if the world's smallest startups could have an R&D team bigger than yours through this model. Your competition, in fact, anyone, can now access on-demand talent anywhere in the world to do research and innovation. They can turn on a crowd of proven innovators that dwarfs your research and innovation organization. And 60% of these innovators would not meet your hiring criteria for an in-house role anyway. These innovators work at their own risk, they work on their own time, and they're not guaranteed any pay. And they drive incredible solutions time and time again for a fraction of the cost of traditional methods. The tail is increasingly wagging the dog because it works. Amazon's ecosystem of vendors, Etsy's marketplace of crafters, Incentive's marketplace of innovators are all examples of how the long tail, through new channels, are enabling scale without the need for tens of thousands of people on staff. R&D is being done very, very differently. But let's get back to the topic at hand, innovation at scale, and let us think about your innovation efforts against these 2 axes, value add and sophistication. Most innovation efforts are structured around an innovation event. An event in this context means a need, a trigger, a problem. And this is great. The specific event provides a focus for the team involved and will hopefully drive a positive outcome, though we all know success rates are not that flattering in general. Event-driven innovation in the context of innovation at scale, however, is relatively low sophistication and low value add. Even if the specific innovation need is at potentially high value and the outcome is successful, the itch may have been scratched, but in the context of innovation at scale, that is all we have achieved. In reality, this episodic approach to innovation, which is most likely the approach many of you are taking, is purely reactive. And where it isn't, it barely gets out beyond the lab. Or to put it another way, the traditional approach to problem solving is driving subscale innovation and innovation practices and outcomes. You may have disconnected pockets of activity that are occasionally hitting the mark, mostly not. And due to them being disconnected and not providing any of the extrinsic value that they could across the wider organization. This is even more exacerbated when you consider it in the context of most innovation work is being done decentralized in discrete teams with limited capacity. Capability now is being ring-fenced, and we wonder why our outcomes underwhelm. Through a shift in our thinking and our approach, we can significantly move the dial. We can empower our organizations to innovate and look to build ways of working, skills, and provide the frameworks to start unlocking innovation at an organizational-wide level. This is an important step and one we'll dig more into shortly as we begin to understand what innovation capability means and share some frameworks and tools for getting started. As you increase the capability across your organization, the collective value add increases and the overall sophistication of your innovation program also increases. One of the typical structures for innovation at this stage is to develop a center of excellence or something similar, which provides the resources, the expertise, the guides, training, and more to facilitate the development of a networked, centrally enabled, but locally empowered innovation capability that builds across your business. We're now starting to scale. The network powered by people, process, and platforms is infinitely more powerful than any creative individual. It is so much more powerful that anyone hoping to build a thriving organization will be at serious disadvantage without an enabled innovation network. Think about it. Anything we do in our organizations at scale is, or at least should be, tightly woven into the core of our operational processes, our operating model. Yet innovation, as we have seen, is not typically woven into the core, quite the opposite. It stands to reason, though, that in order to drive innovation at scale, it must be. We need to embed an innovation operating system, and that must be aligned and integrated with the other key strands of our wider enterprise operating model. I'm happy to talk at length about this outside of today's session, but I do believe this is something we must be doing and something we can all be doing too. So let's just pause for a moment, because I've thrown quite a lot of information at you, and I hope at least some of it is resonating, and I look forward to the Q&A session later. As I said at the outset, this is a big topic, but it's a journey, and there are easy steps that anyone can take, and there are great things that you're already doing. The opportunity is to augment the things we're doing and start to build more scale into them. So where should you focus and what should you do? Well, let me posit a simple formula to get going with. Capability, the skills we need, plus capacity, removing the constraints to support scale, plus culture, the environment that enable this to flourish, are the fundamental building blocks for innovation at scale. As with everything, the meaning behind the words matter. So let me give you a few things to think about on each of these themes, starting with capability. One of the biggest challenges we face is balancing the needs of the business today with the needs of the business tomorrow. So let's use a metaphor to make a point. The Roman god Janus had two sets of eyes, one pair focusing on what lay behind and one on what lay ahead. The modern day executive could do with these superpowers. With regards to innovation, we require executives to explore new opportunities, even as they work to exploit existing capabilities. And it's no surprise that very few companies do it well. This is where the concept of the ambidextrous organization comes into play. And we believe that ambidexterity is a core capability for unlocking innovation at scale. The ambidextrous organization is seamlessly able to balance the exploitative needs of the business today with the explorative needs of the business tomorrow through more dynamic ways of working. It's perhaps no surprise that the leaders in this way of working are digital natives. But as I've said, it's a very small percentage of companies that do this well. And we've already looked at some of the reasons why today. Our operating system is set up for the present. We're typically pretty good at things in the exploit box on this slide here. We think about the explore box as something that is not connected. However, as we've said, if we're to be truly ambidextrous, today is our left hand, tomorrow is our right hand, and the two are intrinsically connected, and we need to operate as such. As I said earlier, digital natives seem to do this better than others. In fact, the world's largest company is ambidextrous. Amazon is the world's biggest spender on R&D. Take a look at Amazon's annual report. Their view of innovation is aligned with our view of innovation. Jeff Bezos is an advocate of ambidexterity. They talk openly of a new R&D definition, which they insist includes both routine or periodic alterations, relentless improvements in our speak, and significant improvements, breakthrough innovations, and everything in between that drives value. But this is far more than just a classification question. It's a mindset and a true appreciation of how scaled thinking works. And it is core to how Amazon has grown exponentially to become the world's largest company. In a research report, Innovation at Scale, we published earlier this year, we explore and introduce the concept of the challenge-driven enterprise, which embraces the principles of Agile to improve innovation outcomes. By taking an Agile approach to innovation, we begin to think about problems in very different ways. How we frame them, how we break them down to their component parts, how we create manageable work units from them, and to the approaches that we take to resolve them. A couple of recent examples from our work saw us support a global pharmaceutical business in rapidly diagnosing an issue with an in-market drug. It took weeks rather than years. And a leading energy player turned a 40 million euro R&D problem into a 2 billion euro commercial opportunity by daring to think and act differently. In both cases, these innovation events were driven by a central to local approach to innovation capability and a structured approach to thinking about the problem that would draw in the most diverse range of voices without impacting quality. In both cases, the answer came from an unlikely source that neither company would have uncovered through traditional approaches. And the solution was uncovered significantly faster and for lower cost than the traditional approaches. The third focus area I'd like to drill down on under capability is innovation skills. We need to build and nurture the skills of our leaders, our managers, and all employees in the key aspects of agile innovation and a broader suite of core skills to move innovation out of the lab and into the broader organizational toolkit. We should be seeking to increase our skill levels across the entire organization. Raising the watermark, even 1% for everybody, would be hugely impactful. But there are three key roles in the operationalizing of innovation as an organizational capability. I won't get into these in detail today, but can happily share more thoughts offline on this or on any of the topics I've touched on today. But ask yourself who these people might be in your organization, and whether they are adequately empowered and enabled to drive the innovation outcomes we've been talking about today. Who's your exec sponsor? Who might own this sort of platform piece that we've been speaking about? And who are the various business problem owners? Moving quickly on to the next theme in our innovation at scale equation, we look at capacity. Key to driving scale is the creation of unbounded capacity. We recently started working with a challenger engineering firm in the US, and in speaking with their CEO, it was great to hear her speaking about the draw of our innovation at scale approach, as she saw it provided her with the ability to act and think like her larger competitors, but in a much more agile and innovative way. Think about that. Smaller companies are able to gather your scale as large companies, but in a more agile and innovative way. What distinguishes successful and great companies from the rest of the pack when it comes to innovating at scale is their ability to create well-working platforms that enable a wide set of actors to participate. Innovation comes from distributed decision-making. Top-down teams are effective at optimizing existing processes and enforcing the completion of work, but only decentralized bottom-up teams can consistently generate new ideas. And so your innovation OS, which underpins innovation at scale, seeks to connect all of the different actors in your innovation network together. It provides for an always-on community of problem solvers, underpinned by a philosophy of co-creation, an appreciation of the importance of technology and process to support scaled working, and some smart technology that ensures knowledge is constantly captured, mined, and exploited. Imagine if you had a world of innovators on demand whenever you needed them, and a living library of ideas and innovation that AI-enabled technology could connect to your needs as you have them. It's funny how many less important things in our organizations have a centralized system behind them. Yet we have so few organizations have a centralized home for innovation. Your innovation OS is your global home for innovation. It is the enabler of innovation at scale, providing you the enterprise-grade tools and processes to move ideas through. a structured way of doing that at scale, and connects together all of your disparate innovation communities, internal, external co-creation, and beyond. Our innovation today is so horribly episodic and mostly hugely inefficient and probably really just good PR in cases. Without a unified, centralized operating system, we're operating with one hand tied behind our back. And it is hardly possible to be ambidextrous in that setting. In fact, it's hard to be meaningful, impactful at all. But we get it right, and the prize is big. Those who can enable capability and capacity have the potential to accelerate new product development, create responsive, customer-driven products and service enhancements, deliver on our critical sustainability pledges, and build genuine cultures of innovation. And here are just a few of the thousands of examples we have to prove this approach works, helping global brands to think and act differently, to unleash the power of innovation at scale. We've supported brands as they seek to build an always-on culture of innovation with huge impact. Over $2.25 billion in these 3 logos alone. And that is just the things we can talk about. There's even more in these logos that we know of that we can't speak of. So why are you waiting? Why are you leaving value on the table whilst others are not? And whilst this might all sound quite big, complex, and scary, it really isn't. We have simple ways to get you started, to start seeing value. And as with many things in life, the first step is always the hardest, but you won't know until you try. But don't forget the final part of the equation, culture. If the culture isn't right, the car will not start. Lots has been written on culture and culture of innovation over the years, and I'm not going to spend much time on it today. I personally believe culture is a lot about leadership, empowerment, and a shift of thinking from problems and solutions to hypotheses and experiments. But as I said, I'm not going to dig too deeply into this today. I'm happy to revisit another time. Instead, I'll share some words of wisdom from the leader of the world's most successful ambidextrous organization. I'll let you read the slide as I keep talking. As experimentation gains acceptance, data-driven top management must rethink innovation opportunity, must rethink risk investment strategies, and begin to emulate digital business leaders. We must think as leaders how we can move to faster and more iterative ways of working. We're already seeing a shift to virtual research centers through business offerings like our Incentive brand from more traditional approaches to R&D. But let me ask you, how many experiments really are you doing per year, per month, per day? How are you doing research and innovation at scale and at speed? Because if you are not, you must know that others are and will continue to do so. And so I leave you once again with this simple summary of the foundations of innovation at scale. I hope this has been a useful and interesting session, and look forward to any questions you may have. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn and other usual social hangouts, or feel free to email me, simon@wazoku.com. And remember, there has never been a better time to innovate. Thank you.